We want to give a great welcome to Rose Crawford, who is from Kentwood and represents Protect Young Eyes. And let's give her a round of applause.
Hello, I'm excited to be here. I love talking to students and to families, and I love sharing what I've learned, the things that we're learning as an organization. And before we get started tonight, if you just bow with me in prayer, I'd love that. Father God, we thank you for another day. We thank you for this life that you've given us and the opportunity to live out our love and our passion for you in the choices that we make in our world today. And I just pray that as we talk tonight, that we will have our ears opened, our eyes opened, that we would be willing to think deeply and ask questions and be challenged. And I pray that you will give me the words to say to this specific group of people, that I will only speak what you want me to, God, and that you will guide this conversation, and we will grow together and be challenged together. And we love you in your son's name. Amen. So I love talking about technology. I think it's really important, and I think we spend a lot of time here. How many of you students think that we spend a huge amount of our life in the digital space? Yeah. And as I'm talking to you tonight, I just want to let you know, you can take what I say and apply it, or you can leave it. Really, the decision is yours. I can't force it. You have to own it. You have to make that choice for yourself. And I really just want you to do something. I'm going to talk about a lot of different things tonight. We're going to cover a lot of different areas, but I'd like you to apply at least one thing that we talk about tonight to your life and what you're doing in your digital space. Because each of us, even as I was praying, each of us are given the opportunity to live one life. And we're going to have good times and bad times. We're going to make mistakes sometimes, and thankfully, by the grace of God, we're forgiven for those. But digitally, those mistakes can cost us a lot. Digitally, those choices can be good or bad. They can take us really far in our life, or they can hold us back from really awesome opportunities. And as we're using our devices, we get it, right? We have the flashing screens. We feel like we have to respond right away. There's notifications. Maybe we're working on an essay for English class and language arts, and then we're getting dragged into this DM and Instagram. And then we send something out that we didn't mean to, and oops, oh man, that was really fast. We didn't stop and think about what we were doing and pause before we sent that message. And I hope that as we talk tonight, you think about that, because if you're not careful, some of what we put out there could get posted like we're talking about tonight. So James said, just learn that Africa isn't a country. It's not? Nope, it's not. That's crazy. So is it just a developing country or just a continent? I don't know. I'll find out later in the semester and let you know. I cutted my hair and it went back to curly. Don't you mean cut? It's past tense. My teacher is so dumb, he thought the sun was a star. That's because it is. No, it's not. A sun is a sun and a star is a star. Saying that a sun is a star is the same thing as saying a tomato is a fruit. That's right. It's just not true. Be careful what you put out there, because we might use you in the future. The things that we post, they have ripple effects. They affect us, and they affect the people around us that we care about. So we need to be cautious and thinking through what we post before we post it. This device that we carry in our pockets or our bags or whatever, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to change. They're going to have great new advances. It's not going anywhere, and it's not all bad. It's really how we're using it. I mean, think about some of the apps that you use, the things that you enjoy. Maybe you think, okay, there are beautiful pictures on Instagram, and people are really creative. Stuff on Instagram, not so good sometimes. Snapchat. It can be a lot of fun. Face filters, you can be goofy, crazy, silly. But are you worried that you have to keep your streak going? Are you stressed? Are you anxious all the time? TikTok. Maybe you're an awesome dancer. No. Or you like watching what other people are coming up with and being creative. Stuff out there not so good sometimes. We need to have less of this kind of feeling when we're using our devices and more of this. Something that makes us smile, that actually causes us to be happy and excited. And we don't always feel that way when we're using our technology, when we're on social media. And sometimes we need a good laugh once in a while too. I mean, who doesn't love a rainbow pooping unicorn? John 10:10 says this, "A thief comes only to rob and steal and destroy. I came that everyone would have life and have it in its fullest." Students, who is talking here? Anybody know? Yeah. God, yes. Specifically whom? Yeah. Jesus, yes. Jesus said this. He said, "A thief comes only to rob, steal, and destroy, but I came that everyone would have life and have it in its fullest." Who is the thief that Jesus is talking about? Yeah. Satan. Absolutely. And isn't it interesting, if we think back through our long history and how it all started, isn't that how it began in the beginning? That what God made good and created for good and for his glory, Satan wanted to twist and use for evil. And while Jesus said these words, our devices didn't exist then, the truth of what Jesus said still applies to how we use our devices. Because Satan would love nothing better than to rob your joy, steal your time, and destroy your relationships by how you use your technology. But Jesus says he has come that we can have life in its fullest. And that means even when we use our technology, we can use it to God's glory and to the encouragement and the building up of people around us. That's exciting. That's awesome. So really, the choice is yours. I don't get to make that for you, right? Your parents might have rules and guidelines for you. Your teachers and mentors might speak into your life and encourage you to make those decisions. But you have to own your choice. And it's up to you. Am I going to be hurtful or helpful with how I use my tech? Just have you watch this video. It's just a words video. So I hope when you're using your technology, you are making your life count. You're building people up around you, and you're influencing people in a way that would honor God and that would bring life to those around you. As we talk tonight, I want to talk through 4 tech tips, and I want some interaction from you. I know some of you are like, my parents are here, and I don't want to talk. But I want you to interact with me, and I'm going to ask questions, and I want your feedback. And I'll ask you what the tech tips are. So I want you to respond as we're going through this. The first one is this: the internet never forgets. Say that with me. The internet never forgets. Okay, so there are 4 animals in the animal kingdom that recognize themselves in a mirror. So if they see themselves and go away and come back, they know who they are. Any guesses as to what those 4 would be? Okay, a dolphin. That is 1. Yes, there are 3 more. Okay, a pig and an elephant. So an elephant is certainly one. An elephant never forgets. A pig is not one, but that's a good guess. Any other guesses? We had a dolphin. Yes. A lion? No. What? I heard something. A monkey. So primates. Yes, and that covers all of them. And then dolphins. The last one's really tricky. Any guesses? Yeah. Humans. Outside of humans, there are 4 other animals. So that was right. That we should fall under that, right? I hope we would measure up here. Besides humans, okay? That was a fair. I didn't explain that very well. Any other guesses? No. I have had that one guess before. Okay, I'm going to tell you because it'll be too hard. The Eurasian magpie. Who knew? I was like, bam, Eurasian magpie, you're going to be awesome, right? I know. It's a crazy smart bird. So as we think about these, and then we think about our technology, those animals can see themselves in the mirror, go away, come back, and they know who they are. The same thing is true about our technology and the things that we put out there. They become permanent. Like if you draw with a Sharpie marker on a whiteboard, dry erase board. Anybody ever done that before? It's a really awful feeling. You can't really take it back. You can try to clean it, but it never looks quite as good as it did originally. And when we're using our technology and the things that we're putting out there, we can't take the stuff back. We can maybe delete it and hope that nobody screenshotted it, nobody forwarded it, or sent it to somebody else, and no one saw it. But it's not like back in the day, if I didn't like a picture, I could just burn it and it would be gone for good. That's not how it is with our technology. Once we post something on the internet, it takes on a level of immortality. It's hard to make it ever die or go away. So think about the kinds of pictures you're posting and the things that you're sending. Be careful. This one's a little bit harsh and maybe shocking for some of you. Some of you might think, well, I can send this picture to this person because we're in love. Or they're not going to show anybody. But I've interacted with way too many students that they've believed that, and they've been burned, and they've been hurt. And I just want to say this other thing. Ladies, if you have a guy saying he loves you and he wants a nude of you, he's lying. He loves himself. Gentlemen, if you're taking a picture of your junk, nobody wants to see that. Nobody. And I'll just make this other statement because I had a student last week think that I was only picking on men. This is not just a male problem. This is a human sin problem. This is a male-female problem. We both struggle in this area. And the problem is we're looking for identity and affirmation in all the wrong places. We're trying to find it from other people that are fallen just like we are, instead of finding it in the one where we recognize whose image we're made in. And so I want to just encourage you, don't get caught up in this trap. There have been a lot of students whose lives have been ruined. They've been embarrassed, they've been devastated, they've had to switch schools multiple times because they thought it was okay to send this one picture to this one person that they trusted. And it cost them. Galatians 6, 7, and 8 says, "You cannot fool God, so don't make a fool of yourself. You will harvest what you plant. If you follow your selfish desires, you will harvest destruction. But if you follow the Spirit, you will harvest eternal life." What are you planting? What seeds are you planting in your digital life? What kind of harvest are you going to reap from those choices? Anybody interested in going to college or getting a job someday? Yeah, that's cool. It's exciting. Did you know that there are people creeping around on your social media accounts to see if they actually want to hire you? My daughter's friend, my oldest daughter's 22, and I was talking to her friend who's also 20s, and she said, yeah, at my work, my boss
interviewed this young woman, and I thought she was really sweet and really nice, and I thought she'd get the job. And my boss said, I'm not going to hire her. I went on her social media accounts. There's no way she's working here. So this young lady lost her opportunity for a job because of the choices she was making digitally. There was a group of students that were accepted to Harvard, and they started sharing memes that were inappropriate and racist and sexist and all sorts of things that were just junk. And they thought they were funny. And it was a private group, so they didn't think anybody would find out about it. But the school found out about it and said, we don't want you to come here anymore. And there's a young man who's now 20, and he shares his story. He writes about how he was so embarrassed to tell his family that he was rejected from Harvard because he had family and people that were alumni. And his family said, you're an embarrassment to us. And I think, man, I feel badly for him. I think that's really sad. I wish that wouldn't have happened. I feel bad that that happened. I don't think he should have been doing what he did, but I also feel bad that he missed out on an opportunity. Think about the choices you're making digitally. Don't miss those opportunities that are set before you. Remember, you have a choice to be hurtful or helpful. So what was tech tip number 1? We're going to review. The internet never forgets. Yes. So keep these in your mind. I want them to come back when you're using your tech, even if it's just once in a while, even if it's like a little whisper where maybe God's reminding you, hey, remember what you talked about. Remember what you learned. Tech tip number 2 is my words matter big time. Okay, say that with me. My words matter big time. So how we communicate is so powerful. It can change people's lives. Literally. We have to be thinking through what kinds of words we're using, what kind of language we're using. These are my little guys, JD and Silas, and JD is still learning to talk. He's almost 2, and he's learning animal sounds, and he uses some small words and phrases. When he was learning animal sounds, he was learning, what does a cow say? Moo. What does a duck say? Quack, quack. What does a fox say? Ding, 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 ding. And he really did learn that. There was a teacher, she was a kindergarten teacher, and she was teaching a group of children that were delayed. And they were doing the animal sounds, and they were going through all of them, and they got to what does a cow say? Well, what do you think a cow says? Eat more chicken. This little boy said this. He believed this because he'd heard that before. He'd been impacted by a message. So he really thought that's what a cow said. And it's funny, right? But think about as we're growing from the time we're little and we grow up to become adults someday, we're impacted by the messages that we hear, by the words that people say to us. And we impact others by the words we say to them. So think about the kinds of things that you're sending out in your digital life. What kind of words are you using? What kinds of things are you sharing? They have power, whether good or bad. And here's a challenge. What if we could all have each other's backs? What if you all decided to be warriors for each other and you stood up for one another and you took action if you saw something that wasn't right, even if it scared you a little bit because you knew it was better to do the right thing than to do nothing? We're seeing a huge amount of teenagers struggling with depression, anxiety, and suicide. And there have just been even a couple in the past week that my husband and I have interacted with people teens that have decided that their life was not worth living any longer. Life is a gift. And they were believing things that they saw on social media, that the lies that were out there that told them otherwise. We're seeing increased depression over the years. You can see that. And then just the increased suicide rates are astronomical. Anybody in here been affected by suicide before? Yeah. And it's not getting better when we're going to social media for support. That's actually hurting. So I want to encourage any of you students in here, if you're struggling with depression or you're struggling with anxiety or you're thinking about suicide and you're having those thoughts, stop. You are worth way more than that. And talk to someone about it. Talk to your parents. Talk to your pastors or your youth leaders. Let them know that you're in this dark place. You don't have to be there by yourself. You have people that love you and that care for you. Don't try to figure it out alone. And remember that water droplet from earlier? The ripples, the things that we post on social media, on the internet, they go out and affect people. They can be good or they can be destructive. Consider the words that you're using. There was an earthquake off the coast of Japan back in 2011, and a tsunami came inland and destroyed the lives of over 28,000 people. That's how destructive our words can be if we're not keeping them in check. James 3:6 says, the tongue is like a spark. It's an evil power that dirties the rest of the body and sets a person's entire life on fire with flames that come from hell itself. Ooh, James, what are you really saying here? Wow, this little teeny thing has so much power. And sometimes it's not the things that we say face to face, right? Our thumbs do an awful lot of talking too, even though they don't have tongues. Often we will say things with our thumbs we would never say with our tongues because we're hidden behind a screen and we feel safe that we can say these things. We don't have to see the reaction of the person that's reading the message we've sent them. We don't have to see the pain, and we can pretend it's fine. Think about you and your choice. You can't control the choices that other people make around you, but you can control the decisions that you're making in your digital life. Remember, it's your choice, hurtful or helpful. So what are the 2 tech tips so far that we've talked about? Oh, I thought I saw a hand. Yeah. Oh, you're doing both of them. Okay. Whoa, way to go. Yes, the internet never forgets, and my words matter big time. Awesome. Number 3 is the internet can be a tricky place. So we're going to talk about a couple different things. We'll start with tricky people. And that might sound really juvenile, right? Like, why are we using that term? I am not in elementary school. Yep, I know. But when I was growing up, it was stranger danger, okay? So that was, my parents would say, hey, Rose, if you go to the park, stay away from the white van, the guys wearing hoodies, handing out candy, and holding a puppy. That was it. That was stranger danger. I knew that that was not okay to go by them. That was not safe. But you guys, you have it way, way, way harder than I ever did. And we use the term tricky people. Stranger danger had to do with what I could see. Tricky people has to do with what people say. So you have to pay attention to the language that they're using. What happens, let's just say you're out there and you're, I don't know, on TikTok or Twitch or whatever, and you're messaging somebody, or someone's messaging you rather, that you don't know, and they like your picture. Maybe it's you playing soccer, maybe it's you hanging with your friends, but you don't know them. But they seem nice. You don't respond to them. If you don't know them face to face, eye to eye, in the real physical world, you don't have to talk to them in the digital world. And that's just being smart. I want you to treat them like this. Creepy hoodie person. And I say creepy hoodie person because predators, I'll use that term, you're all old enough, predators are male and female. And they're really good at their jobs. They're really good at getting to know young people because you're the target, you're the prey. It's disgusting if I use those terms, right? But they're after you. And you need to be careful. And some of you might think, I'm old enough, I can handle it. No, my husband and I helped get a college-age girl that got moved across the country because she started talking to tricky people online. And she got fooled. So I don't think any of you are too old to hear this part of the story. Sometimes you'll get people sending you profile pics that look like this guy. Looks pretty harmless. I mean, he might even write something like, I love my mom, I love Jesus, I'm in a band. Like, okay, that's awesome. But you don't know that for sure, right? It's not like when I would go to the park and I could see people that I didn't know. You don't know. They look safe, they look fine, they look like maybe your age even. You have to be really cautious and careful about who you're talking to. Tricky people ask really nice questions and are some of the nicest people on the internet. And that is where the problem lies. That's the issue. And we want to believe the good of other people. We think, well, we would never do that to somebody. We wouldn't send a fake profile pic to somebody and pretend to be somebody that we're not. Why would somebody do that to us? They do. They have, and they will continue to do that. I want you to read this next paragraph with me. It's okay not to talk to nice people I don't know online. Why? Because they can hurt me badly. I want to give you guys permission because I think probably all of you students in this room are really nice students. You're really nice teenagers. And you feel this obligation, right? Because you're taught from the time you're little, if someone talks to you, it's rude not to respond. Or if someone gives you a compliment, it's rude not to say thank you. But in this case, in your digital life, the same rules do not apply. You do not have to talk to somebody you don't know. You do not have to say thank you. You do not have to respond to them. And that is not being mean. That's not being rude. That's not going against what you've been taught growing up face-to-face, person-to-person. You're in the digital life now, so the rules are different. That's not being rude. That is being smart. And I also want to encourage you with this. If you have someone that has been reaching out to you that you do not know, I want you to put it down and tell someone. Anybody have some ideas of who this someone might be that we could tell, that you could tell? Yeah. Parents? Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Teachers? Absolutely. I could go through the list, right? Pastors, mentors, youth leaders. I like to cover it with a trusted adult. I think that covers a lot of them. Some students will tell me, well, maybe I'll tell my friend. Guess what? You might freak your friend out. You might get your friend involved in a situation. So you might want to tell your friend for moral support, but the best person to tell is a trusted adult. And even if you think that you're old enough and that you're able to solve it on your own, I want to encourage you, get help. Get somebody else involved. There's no shame in it. Put it down and tell a trusted adult. Remember your choice, right? To be hurtful or helpful in your digital life. Okay, so review. I've got 3 tech tips now for you. What are they? What's the first one? Yes, I'm hearing more response now. This is good. The internet never forgets. What's the second one? My words matter, big time. What's the third one? The internet can be a tricky place. Number 4 is the internet is a great liar. So if we think all the way back again to the beginning, right? It kind of all fell apart when Eve believed a lie. God's keeping something from you. You're missing out on something. And sometimes we think that if we tell a lie, it's not hurting anybody because, they don't know. What they don't know won't hurt them. And it's just between me and God, really. But the problem is lies do hurt people. They damage relationships. They destroy connections that we have. They obliterate trust. So lies aren't worth it. Pornography is a liar. It messes with your brain. You start thinking that what you see on the screen is how it is in real life. You think that porn is like sex. It's not. You think that it's not a big deal. No one's getting hurt. Well, did you know there's this thing called human trafficking and sex trafficking? And when we participate in watching pornography, we are feeding that monster in that industry. You don't know if you're watching a slave or if you're watching a child. Don't fall for the lie. Don't be tricked into believing something that isn't true. Pornography also tells us lies about how people want to be treated. And we start treating people as less than. We forget that they're image bearers of the Almighty God. They have value, they have worth, they have souls. And we start to lose sight of that. And we grow callous towards those around us. Back in World War II, to end the war with Japan, the U.S. dropped 2 bombs, one on Hiroshima and one on Nagasaki. And the blast from those bombs obliterated everything in the path. There was nothing left. But the light, the momentary light, caused these burned shadows. So you could see a woman climbing the stairs to her bank with her cane, and a man at work next to his ladder. Their bodies were never recovered, but the burned shadows exist and remain. And I want to show you this image because when you are viewing pornography, when you're viewing highly sexualized content, when you're viewing even violent video games, some of those images get burned in your brain just like this. They're really hard to get rid of or to ever totally forget. Social media is a liar. I start really thinking that my value and my worth is found in likes and friends and followers. I start to believe that. It's not true. You're worth way more than that. God sent his son Jesus to die for you. That's how much you're worth. We're going to hear a little bit from Jaden. He tells his story about his use with social media, specifically Snapchat.
I always tried to make time for my streaks, just a little bit of time, because it's not like anything hard. You just got to take a picture and then send it out to whoever it is. The things that I do on Snapchat are like I'll go look at the stories, or like there's usually basketball highlights. I like basketball, so I'll go watch the basketball highlights from the game last night or football highlights. It's just, I don't know, it's just like something to do, I guess, something to look forward to, and it helps you meet friends. The Snap streak is like important to me because it's like a video game kind of, because like you just want to get higher and higher. It's just like something to achieve. My longest streak was like, it was with some random person that I don't even know. Like still to this day I don't know them personally, but they just added me on Snapchat one day and his name was like, let's reach 100 or something like that, and I just sent him a streak and we didn't stop for a while, and we eventually got up to 1,000, a little bit over 1,300. At times I did have to have people keep my streaks for me because I've got my phone taken away before that, but like when it happened, when I lost the streak, it was just so sudden. I didn't have time and everybody was at school and I didn't have my phone and I couldn't really go outside. I couldn't go outside or talk to anybody to keep my streaks, so I had no choice but to just lose it. When I lost it, I was really mad. Like I was so mad. I didn't want to be on Snapchat anymore. It just didn't feel good at all to lose it. Looking back on it, for a streak that lasted 3 years, it was just like time consuming, to be honest. Like, you had to wait for them to send it, and then you'd be scared if they didn't send it. Don't get too wrapped up into Snapchat. I could have did a lot with the time that I spent on it. Like, I could have worked on homework, I could have played basketball, I could have linked with friends, chilled with friends, did a whole bunch of other stuff, but it happened. I can't go back.
What kind of time are you using on social media? Social media isn't bad, right? I've said I like technology. I think it can be used for good. But what other things could we do maybe instead? And maybe cut down some of that time. Your time is valuable, and these companies want your attention. And then sometimes we start believing the lies that social media tells us. Go ahead and read some of these. And I want you to answer honestly. I was at a group one time, and they were like, nope. They didn't want to read through any of them. They didn't think any of them applied to them. Be real with yourself. You don't have to answer this for me. You don't have to answer this for your parents or for your pastors or your youth leaders. Answer for yourself quietly. Are you here? Do I worry about missing notifications? Do I compare myself to others? Do I feel anxious after using social media? Do I ever hate myself because of what I see? Do I feel pressure to look a certain way? Have I ever wished social media didn't exist? If you feel that way at all, I just want to encourage you, you're not the only one. There are times when we do feel lonely. And social media has fooled us into thinking that we're going to be connected to somebody if we use social media. But the problem is oxytocin, which is that thing that bonds us to other humans, we don't get that through our phones. We get dopamine, we get a really good high, but then we have to use it over and over and over and over again to get that high again. We don't get oxytocin, that thing that connects us with real people. So I want to encourage you. Maybe it's time to discipline yourselves. Maybe it's time to put the device down and lift your heads up and look at each other face to face, eye to eye. And I know sometimes that can be really intimidating. Really intimidating. When you go out in public, you see people on their phones a lot, just looking down. Because they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to look at other people in the eye. Because then you have to reveal something about yourself, and that's scary. But it's good, it's healthy, it's right. So go ahead and set your stuff down once in a while. Maybe do it without your parents telling you. Make that choice for yourself. Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, my friends, keep your minds on whatever is true, pure, right, holy, friendly, and proper. Don't ever stop thinking about what is truly worthwhile and worthy of praise." We want to be feeding our minds and our brains with things that are true, with things that are right, with things that are honest, that are going to build us up and cause us to build into the lives of people around us. We don't want to be believing the lies that social media is telling us. My daughter had this verse on her wall for years. She's now 22, but growing up, my daughter struggled with self-esteem. And a lot of times when we talked about it, she would say she was on Instagram or whatever other app. And then she started feeling low. And then we'd say, what lies are you believing about yourself? What does God say about you? What's true about you? Stop believing the lies that the thief is trying to feed you. Believe what the King, your Creator, says about you. You saw that video earlier, right? Eventually, we will die someday. We will get to the end of our lives. And I hope for you, teens in the room especially, that you are able to live a long, full life. Live it to its fullest. And when you get to the end of your life, I guarantee you aren't going to look back and say, man, I wish I would have had like 1,234 followers or 234 hearts in the most recent selfie or made it to level 14 of whatever video game. You aren't going to be thinking that. In the grand scheme of things, that's not going to be what's most important. Relationships with real people is what's going to be most important and valuable. Family, friends, those connections that you've made over your lifetime. So I want to encourage you this week, hug more people. Remember that oxytocin? We get that from giving people hugs and from smiling. It's not a bad thing. We need that connection. We were created for community. We were created for relationship. Maybe take a social media break. Maybe set it down. Do more face-to-face, in person. And then delete toxic people. People that are bringing you down, that are telling you lies, that are making you believe things about yourself that just aren't true. God says you have value and you have worth, that you are an image bearer. And I'm excited because I think you are amazing, and I'm excited to see what kind of life God has for you as you walk forward in your future. The choices that you make digitally, how they're going to be different and even world-changing for some of you because you're doing something unique. You're doing something powerful in an awesome way to live a full life and to lead others to do the same. Don't believe the lies. Quit listening to that awful, ugly voice that you let speak to you at times. Shut it up. As we finish, I just want to encourage you with this video. This video shows a gentleman doing something kind in the physical world, but I think you can translate how some of those things, even in our digital life, if we're doing kind things, if we're living out our faith, if we're honoring God and encouraging others by how we're using our tech, that can be life-changing and powerful too.
เขาจะได้อะไร ถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวัน เขาจะไม่ได้อะไรเลย ไม่ได้รวยขึ้น ไม่ได้ออกทีวี ไม่มีใครรู้จัก ไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้น เพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึก ได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
ไทยประกันชีวิตเชื่อในความดี
So that's a Thai commercial, but I think it communicates really well what we want to start thinking about, even in our digital space, the kinds of choices that we're making. And we may just feel like we don't have anything to offer. What can we do? Just the small, consistent things and choices that you're making in your digital space can do a whole lot for your friends and other people that are watching you and the decisions that you're making. So as we end, I want to review the 4 tech tips. The first one's already up there. The internet never forgets. What's the second one? Yeah, my words matter, big time. What's the third one? Yes, the internet can be a tricky place. What's the last one? Yeah, are you guys like looking at notes here? Okay, I was gonna say, you're rocking. All right, the internet is a great liar. I hope that when you're using your tech, you kind of keep this in mind. I'm not here to say don't ever use technology. I'm here to say use it in its fullest for God's glory. Live your life to your fullest through how you use your technology. Remember, keep this in mind. There are people out there, there are predators out there that want to get to know you. Be cautious. Be wise, be smart. And we'll just end with this cute little puppy picture just to remind us there are good things on the internet, and we can be part of that good thing that's on the internet and how we're using our tech. I hope that you guys have a great discussion with your leaders and kind of think through some of the stuff that we've talked about. I love talking to parents. I love talking to students. I think as families, it's great to be able to have these conversations together and to be open with each other and to learn, be willing to learn from each other. I want to introduce you really quickly to my family. I talked about them a little bit, but I don't usually show students the picture because some of them don't really care because they don't know me, which is totally fine, so I don't spend a lot of time there. But my husband, Doug, and I, we've been married, it'll be 17 years this May, and we have 2 older kids that are adopted, Cheyenne and Ryan. They joined our home when they were 9 and 12. Cheyenne is now 22, and Ryan will be 19 next month. And then JD, he is going to be 5 in June. He'll tell you I'm 4.5 if he was here. And Silas is going to be 2 next week. And he is the kid that they come up with rules for because he finds new and creative ways to be crazy and nuts. You can kind of see that in his face a little bit too. If you have more than one child, you can see it. So he's going to give us a run for our money, guaranteed. But I just want to show you my family because I'll be using them kind of as examples. And they know that we talk about them, especially my older 2 kids, that we share our stories and our experiences as a family with other families so that we can learn and grow together. As we talk, I want to start with Proverbs 22:6. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. And that really has to do with us as parents, the choices that we're crafting and the things that we're doing with our kids and how we're teaching them. So it means that it's not someone else's responsibility. It's ultimately our responsibility. We can have support from our church families and maybe from school, but it really comes down to us. And it doesn't mean that our kids are going to always make the right choice. Our kids are going to mess up and screw up and make us sad by the decisions that they make at times. But the hope is that we've given them a good foundation so that they'll return to some of the things that we've taught them over the years. These are some things that we offer, the live talks like we are doing now and we've been doing. We go to schools, Christian, public, other organizations, but we offer talks to K through 12. And then we have a website that I'll show you in just a moment We have our newsletter. I'll have you get signed up for it if you aren't signed up for yet. It's very valuable because we have a researcher on our team, and she sends out information to us as a team weekly, and then we in turn have a newsletter that goes out fairly regularly to inform parents as well. We have our in-class curriculum where teachers or leaders can go through some of the things we've talked about, so that I believe the students tonight will be kind of going over and talking through some of the content together, just to rehearse and rehash and think through together. And it's helpful to have peers have those discussions with some direction from adults. And then the at-home discussion, I believe Nate has that at the back for age-appropriate discussions with your children, depending on what group, whether it's K to 4, 5 to 8, or high school. And then we also offer a teacher continuing ed as well. Here's a little snapshot of our website. We have a blog section, and this is where we review kind of what's trending. We do research and let families know what's going on. And sometimes we'll research things that keep coming up in parent discussions and parent presentations. We'll decide, okay, we need to write about this because there are enough people asking about it. And then we have our apps section. And our apps section, it really reviews the top apps. Between Apple and Google, there are close to somewhere around 5 million apps, but we review the ones that are the most popular, and our researcher helps with that. She looks at what's trending and what teens are downloading, or what we believe teens are downloading, and then we write about it. And you can go to our website and just see what's out there. It might be something that your kids are already using. Maybe your student's asking about an app, and you want to see what we think about it. And then we also have our device section, and this is where we show how to set up parental controls and restrictions for internet-ready devices you might have in your home that you may not even know connect to the internet. And then our resource page is where we recommend various resources that we've tried for our families. We've vetted them. We say, hey, these are valuable. We've tested them. We don't want you to waste your money. Some of them on the resource page are free too, so I'd encourage you to check it out. And you also, on your note-taking guide, have a back page that has a resource section too. I'm going to give you a chance just right now to pull out your phones and get connected to us. If you text the word PROTECT to 66866 and sign up for our newsletter. And you'll get some instructions on how to do that. I will ask you for your email. I encourage you, please put in the email you check, not the one you use for getting free birthday dessert. Okay? So the ones that you're going to actually look at regularly, put in that email address. And then connect to us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. If you have a Facebook, FYI, you're old. So I have a Facebook, I'll own it, but kids don't get Facebook anymore, teens don't get Facebook, that's not the thing. So just to put that out there for you. And we're gonna start with Chris's testimony before Senate. Chris, our founder, Chris McKenna, went to and testified before the Senate in July of last year. So this will kind of start our foundation for what our conversation is gonna be for the evening.
I began Protect Young Eyes 5 years ago because the internet is complex. And even diligent parents are overwhelmed by the digital choices their children are facing. Through thousands of hours of research, hundreds of presentations at schools around the country, and dozens of articles examining digital trends, we have witnessed both the wonderful potential and the troubling and pervasive darkness that exists in the pockets of millions of young people today. I'm certain that in the course of today's discussion, we will hear difficult stories. I wish they were uncommon. In March 2019, CNN reported that Instagram was the leading social media platform for child grooming by sexual predators. Our own test accounts quickly discovered that young people, particularly young girls, can be hunted like prey. We started an Instagram account with 2 photos and tried to mimic the behavior of an average teen girl. We posted 2 selfies with 3 hashtags each, searched a few hashtags, and liked a few photos. Within a week, we had dozens of men sending us images of their genitals, telling us they were horny, and sending us hardcore pornography through direct messages. Even after we told all of them that we were only 12, they were relentless. A recent poll of 2,000 teens found that nearly 75% of them had received pornographic direct messages from strangers on Instagram, even if they had a private account. But you won't find any warnings in the App Store descriptions for Instagram that mention anything about sexual predators, direct message risks, sex trafficking, or hardcore pornography. Instagram's defaults are not set for child safety or data privacy, even though Instagram is rated 12 plus by Apple and 13 plus by Google. At Protect Young Eyes, we've also seen firsthand the predatory symbiotic relationship that exists between Instagram and Snapchat, both used by 75% of teens today. Many Instagram predators quickly shuttle kids over to Snapchat, where evidence disappears. For example, one relentless pedophile on Instagram who calls himself Daddy invites young girls to join him in Snapchat with Instagram posts like 12-plus-year-old slave girls, obedient whores only, or hit me up on Snap to be Daddy's naughty girl. Snapchat is where explicit content on Pornhub lives just seconds away from every user through backdoors within the app. The app knowingly allows a well-documented list of porn performers to make thousands of dollars daily through their premium Snap accounts. Snapchat is where harmless-looking face filters can encourage kids to share their location on Snap Map. It's the app that gave a Coors Beer ad to 13-year-olds, even though they tout age gating. It's the app where every kid, regardless of age, has access to the Discover News section, where they are taught how to engage in risky sexual behaviors such as hookup, group, anal, or torture sex, how to sell drugs, and how to hide internet activity from parents using incognito mode. But again, you won't find anything in Snapchat's App Store descriptions that warn parents about premium Snapchat accounts, predator risks of using Snap Maps, or the hyper-sexualized content in Discover News. Snapchat is rated 12 plus by Apple and 13 plus by Google. Tech companies will tell us that ratings are already in place. However, ratings are not uniform, lack transparency, and there's little accountability for inaccurate ratings. For example, Twitter was rated 4 plus for a decade, even though hardcore porn and prostitution was everywhere. It is still breaking Apple and Google's no porn policy, but only claims infrequent or mild sexual content in the app description. Netflix is rated 4 plus in Apple's App Store, but teen in Google Play. VPNs, which allow teens to circumvent parental controls, are rated 4 plus. Most social media platforms are rated 12 plus by Apple, even though COPPA restricts use by children until age 13. Obviously, the current app ratings process is broken. Tech companies will tell us that protecting kids is a parent's responsibility. However, this position ignores the ubiquitous nature of the internet. Even if I do everything right to protect my own 14-year-old daughter, with almost 90% of teens owning a smart device, a simple ride on the bus or a visit to a friend's house can expose her to life-altering content. Never before in human history have young people had the ability to so radically change the trajectory of each other's lives so quickly. Tech companies will tell us that safeguards are already in place, but it currently takes over 30 steps to properly set up parental controls on an iPhone. We need to simplify this process to help more parents protect their children. For example, better age-based defaults would instantly and easily protect millions of kids. The addition of easy controls over school and bedtime could shut off distracting apps during these very critical times. Tech companies will tell us that regulating apps is too big of a job. It can't be done. However, video games are already successfully doing it, and the ESRB shows us a path that could be applied by reasonable individuals to apps. In fact, it was Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook who recently said, "I believe we need more effective role for governments and regulators." And we agree. Our hope is to create safer digital places for young people. 2 simple solutions could change everything. First, create a uniform, independent, and accountable rating system for apps. And second, enact better defaults based on the age provided during device and app setup. Let's fix this for the kids.
So we'll use his testimony as part of our conversation tonight, and some of the slides and things that I'll show you we'll talk through based upon what he's talking about. I want to start with this relational circle here because I think this is important for us to apply as we talk to our students and our kids about their technology use and how we even use it. So first is curiosity. We need to be curious about what our kids are doing. genuinely curious, not in an accusatory way. So asking them real questions with a smile, not judging, not already assuming the answer, but really letting them teach us. Hey, what are you doing? Teach me about that. Why is that app really cool to you? What do you like about it? Who's using it? What makes it so important for you or for your friends? Ask those questions with genuine curiosity. That's how we learn. That's how our kids learn. And then have a conversation. And conversation needs to be continual. And it can be conversations about anything and everything. There shouldn't be things that are off limits to have conversations with us about. In our home, it's pretty open. Anything's allowed to be asked. And they don't get in trouble. They don't get shamed. They don't get embarrassed. We don't get mad at our kids. And this was helpful. We created an environment where it was safe to talk to mom and dad about anything. And usually it was at the dinner table. Cheyenne would come home with a question from something she heard from school, and Ryan would go, oh, do we have to talk about that again? Because he knew inevitably we'd lead into some conversation of human sexuality or something of that nature that he just didn't want to talk about. But as Ryan got older, and then he was in, high school, sophomore, junior, he started asking more questions because he knew we weren't going to make fun of him. He knew that it was okay to wonder and that we wanted our kids to come to us before they went to their friends, before they went to YouTube or to Google to find some of their answers. Co-play. This is being able to interact with our kids and play things that are interesting and exciting to them. Now, this could be, we want to do co-play outside of devices and tech, right? But sometimes it means sitting down and being player B with whatever video game our kid's playing. I'm a terrible gamer. I don't think my kids really would want me to play. But the fact that I show interest in them, even just last year, my son's friend, they were playing Fortnite, and he heard that I had an account. He's like, dude, we could do squads together. It'd be so awesome. And I was like, you do not want me to run squads with you. It would be terrible. But they thought it was cool that I had this connect, that we could talk, and I was at least trying to show some level of interest, even though that's not really a passion of mine. But I care about my kids, and I care about what they care about. With JD, it's sitting down and just suffering through a show that's just awful. My husband, I remember going downstairs and seeing him sitting next to JD on the couch, and I looked at what he was watching, and I go, oh, you're watching this. And he goes, I hate this show. But JD thought it was really cool because he could see how they put different pieces together, and that was interesting to him. And we want to do co-play with our kids because we want to see how do they win, how do they lose, what kinds of things do they think are funny, what kinds of things are frustrating to them. We get to know how they work when we interact with them like that. And I think it's fun. It shows that they have value and that we will try to value what is important to them. And then that builds a connection and a relationship with our kids too. Caring control. So a lot of times we'll use the word parental control, which is fine, but it can sound like an us against them. And we don't want it to be that way. We want our kids to know that we care about them and the choices and decisions that we're making are for their best interest. It's not that we're trying to ruin their lives or take control of everything, but it's that we're trying to keep them safe from the things that they may not even know they need to be safe from. And if we have some of those other things happening where we have curiosity, we have conversation, we have those co-play moments and connections, there's a little bit more understanding from our kids for this caring control. I remember specifically an instance with Ryan where we had laid out the ground rules, what the deal was, and Ryan's my why kid. And we would go into a conversation. Usually conversations with Cheyenne would be over in just a matter of moments. With Ryan, conversations could go an hour, 2-3 hours long. And I'm not exaggerating. These are real things. And I sometimes just have to walk away because I just couldn't. Really? I thought we talked about this. But the cool thing is, one specific conversation, we said why. We gave all the reasons. And Ryan says, I don't agree with it. And I don't like it. But I'm going to obey you because you're my parents and I love you. That spoke volumes to me because it said he cared more about our relationship and doing what we wanted him to do, we being his parents, even if he didn't like it or agree with it. So there was that bridge that's been built. And we were able to continue fostering that as he's grown. And now he's a young man. And he's having to make some of these decisions for himself. But do that with your kids. Show them and explain the why. Sometimes it can take a long time, but it's worth it. And it shows that you care about them enough to pause and to take the time and maybe be late to things sometimes because you're having a conversation. And then copy me. This is not the do as I say, not as I do mentality. This is the follow me as I follow Christ. I'm going to show you how we want to use our technology. I'm going to give you examples, and I'm going to demonstrate what's appropriate in this use. We're not about the things with the X. We're not about shame. We're not about the silent treatment. We're not about being separate from each other. We're not about spying. This is a big one. Some parents think, I'm going to put filtering and monitoring stuff on my kids' devices, and they're not going to know about it. We're going to do it in secret. As an organization, we do not condone that. We do not think that that's helpful. That can destroy relationships and destroy trust. So we think, yeah, you should have monitoring and filtering software on your kids' devices, but they should know about it, and they should know why, and talk through that with them and explain some of the reasons. Not spying. And then secrets, too. Isn't it just like Satan that would love us to keep secrets? Anything that's in the dark is mysterious. And so having those secrets from our kids and from each other, it's like we need to pull all that stuff out into the light and be honest and open. And that creates such a much healthier situation in our homes. One of the questions we get is, what's the right age to talk about pornography with my kid? Couple thoughts. If you wait until you're ready, it's going to be too late. Your kids are ready before you are. And if you have a 6-year-old that rides the bus, they should probably know what the word means. So JD is 4.5. And I just started introducing this word to him a few months ago. He doesn't really know, because we've only talked about it just briefly, but he knows what good pictures are and he knows what bad pictures are. So that's language he can understand, and he can understand a concept. So bad pictures are any picture that people are showing body parts that are normally covered by a swimsuit. That's a bad picture. And he knows what to do. You put it down and you tell someone. So we've practiced it. We've talked about it. So then if he's in a situation where I'm not there, then he knows, well, mom and dad already talked to me about this. I know what to do. So no matter the age of your children, this should be a conversation that you're having with them. We have a blog post that talks a little bit about this, especially I know some of you that are here might have younger children. This is a great place to start just to get some ideas for language and verbiage, things to use. And if you have older kids, I think it's important to talk about it. We have an epidemic in our country with pornography, and we as the church are not always very vocal, and we're not talking about it. My husband was addicted to pornography. My husband's a minister, by the way, but he was addicted to pornography, started in middle school, or high school rather, and we don't talk about it. We need to talk to our kids and be open about it and say, yeah, it is a struggle. It can be an addiction for people, and what do? We're not going to just sweep it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist. Psalm 119:37 says, turn my eyes from worthless things and give me life through your word. We want to help our kids by being an example and showing them what that looks like, pointing them to what's true and right, the things that are going to fill their minds with holiness. So what are their eyes seeing? How is their brain being impacted? And then how is that affecting how they're living out their lives? This is another really great blog post. You'll see, as we go through tonight, you'll see kind of the screen, and if you see the image with our logo, it's most likely a blog post. It should be on your note-taking guides, but I'd encourage you to look at this. This is a really long post, but we go through almost every device that you can think of where you can set this up, and it's awesome. The company is great. I had trouble setting it up on my own personal laptop, had some issues. The tech support was fantastic. It's free, so I just want to put that out there. A lot of times we think free isn't always good. This is a great company, and we really recommend them. So check it out. It's not going to cost you anything except maybe some time, but it's worth it. I want to start with just a few statistics. When we look at 27%, that doesn't sound like a ton, but when we think about the internet that's unfiltered is 27% explicit videos and content that our kids are being exposed to, then it takes on a totally different meaning. That would be like if we were growing up at home and we had a coffee table in our house and our parents just left 4 magazines out. 3 of them were fine, 1 of them was pornographic. And they just left them out in the open. That sounds ridiculous, but that is what our kids are dealing with on a regular basis if they're using the internet and there's no filter on it. They have the potential to stumble across something that could be really harmful for them. And we're seeing an increase Doctors and nurses are seeing an increase in peer-on-peer sexual abuse. This is my story, actually. I'm a child of the 80s, and so the internet did not exist when I was growing up, but porn definitely did. And I was abused by a friend. I was 4 and 5 years old, and she was my same age. A lot of times we think of abuse as like an adult to child, but we don't realize that it can happen with our own kids, with their friends. So I just want to encourage you, be having those conversations with your kids so they can come to you if there's something going on. When I was growing up, my parents didn't use the word sex. It sounded like a bad word. Guess what? It's not a bad word. God designed it. He made it. It's supposed to be good. But my parents never talked about it. And I never felt okay asking them questions and going to them when abuse was happening to me. I was ashamed. I was afraid. I tried to stop it. I felt guilty. All the things that you hear about with victims of abuse that they go through. I'm not upset with my parents. My parents love me. I was raised in a Christian home, and they care deeply about me. My parents were trying to protect me. So they didn't talk about those things. They didn't think they needed to. They thought it was safe. I was 4 and 5. I learned what sex was. I learned a lot of other things that I would have preferred not to have learned at such a young age. And I went to a really small Christian school, too. So you'd think, oh, these Christian school kids, oh, they're talking about stuff at Christian school, too, and in church youth group. So we need to be real about that and be okay with those discussions. This is another blog post I'd encourage you to check out and just see. And I just another thought, there's a Children Advocacy Center in town. A few years ago, they actually reviewed the students and their clients. They help kids rehabilitate children that are abusers, and they found that only 15% of the kids that abused other kids did so because an actual adult or person abused them. 85% of the kids were abusers because of something they'd seen that was pornographic, online videos, that sort of thing. That's huge. That's a big deal for our kids, especially when they're carrying the internet around in their pockets. So this is the question to think about. Have I had the right conversations with the right kids? And don't be afraid of the conversation. We show our kids and we demonstrate an image to them what we expect their response to be when we have these discussions. So if we are uncomfortable and we are squirming and just, then our kids feel like, well, I need to feel uncomfortable about this too. They have what's called mirror neurons, so they copy what they see. And that's why you have peer-on-peer sexual abuse with younger children. That's how they learn. They copy by doing. And so then they start acting this out. We need to have those discussions with our kids and make it, hey, home is totally fine to talk about any of these things. It's a safe space here. 81,055, this was back from October. They update this daily. But this is the number of videos that was viewed online on YouTube in just 1 second, just to give you the amount. And it's even higher now today. We have a blog post I'd encourage you to check out. If you use YouTube in your home, or if your kids are using YouTube, figure out how to set up the parental controls in restricted mode. And go to the blog post. We walk you through step-by-step how to do that. And sometimes we'll get, well, what about YouTube Kids? Is YouTube Kids better? Well, yes, right? It can mitigate some of the issues it did not eliminate. So there have been things that have slipped through the algorithm that parents have been horrified that their kids have seen because they were on YouTube Kids and they thought it was safe. We encourage, if you have, especially elementary school, middle school kids, that they're using their devices, that they're using the computer, tablet, whatever, with you around, that you know what they're on, you can hear what they're playing and seeing so that you're aware of it. And then just a question to think about for you, are YouTube and YouTube Kids under control in my home? And then just the digital trends, we want to talk through these briefly. Digital trend 1, ubiquity of technology means there's no such thing as tech-free. This is from Chris's testimony. With almost 90% of teens owning a smart device, a simple ride on the bus or a visit to a friend's house can expose a child to life-altering content. Never before in human history have young people had the ability to so radically change the trajectory of each other's lives so quickly. So honestly, you cannot control all the digital risk impacting your kids. Leave the ignorance of the land of if your child will see or do something on a digital device that you don't want them to. Are you ready for all the digital whens? So maybe role play. Think about that. We encourage you to actually make a list of all the things that concern you that your children can come into contact with. And then have age-appropriate conversations with your kids. Maybe come up with some solutions of, hey, when this happens, this is what you should do. Or this could be your code word. Some parents have done that, especially if it's a private thing, like if their kids have seen pornography, but the child doesn't feel comfortable saying that in the midst of other family members around. They could have a code word. Come up with that. Talk through that as parents to children. And then another question we get is, what's the right age to give my kids social media? So you may have heard in the testimony, there is a legal age. Anybody catch that? Yeah, 13. So that's the COPPA age. The Children Online Privacy Protection Act was created almost 20 years ago, and that was to keep kids from under the age of 13 from having their information collected. We as an organization are still trying to work to maybe bump that up to 15, because that was almost 20 years ago, and things have changed a whole lot since then. There's a lot more crazy stuff that our kids are interacting with. But when we think about the right age, we think this is sort of the wrong question. It's not a one-size-fits-all, because not all kids are the same. So that's not the way to approach it. We do have a blog post where I encourage you to check that out and read a little bit farther and dig a little bit more. A couple things we would suggest is ask yourself this question, ask your kids this question. Can I say 3 amazing things about myself? If your child cannot say 3 amazing things about themselves, they do not know who they are, they do not have a self-identity, they don't have a good self-esteem, then they're not ready for social media. Because social media is great at assigning an identity to kids. This is part of the reason why you might find parents that locate secret accounts and the kids in these accounts don't look anything like their children. They have risen to the level of taking on this persona that they believe that they need to take on, that social media is telling them they need to do. So just think through that. Is your child able to stay at home for 3 hours by themselves? If not, they're probably not ready for 3 minutes on social media. And are they able to look an adult in the eye and have a face-to-face conversation without leading in direction from you? Those are some really big key markers that we think are important. And if your child meets those, great. If you want to wait a little bit longer and you think, I don't know if socially, emotionally they're ready for social media, great. We don't think social media is the be-all, end-all. Our society tells us that we have to have it, that our kids have to have it, and that they're missing out. But the thing is, it's robbing some of them of joy and innocence of growing up. So delaying social media is not a bad thing. Maybe some other things to consider are, do you get good grades? Can you get yourself out of bed in the morning? Do you have a job that you're able to get up for and be responsible with? Those are some other key things to consider. But check out the blog post to read a little bit more. Digital trend number 2 is most of the apps your kids like were designed for addiction and not safety. Right? Safety doesn't pay the bills, designed for exploitation, not protection, designed for engagement, not moderation, designed for attention grabbing. And yet, 75% of kids use Instagram, 76% of kids use Snapchat. Nowhere else in society where so many young people spend time do we allow for so much disregard for their well-being. And I think that's really interesting, because I look back over the years and see people getting upset about playground equipment, and we're worried about our children's physical safety. So I think, is the teeter-totter outlawed, or is that just in my head? But I thought that was like a thing that they like nixed it, because nope, we can't have our kids falling off the teeter-totter. So we're really concerned about their physical safety, but then we forget that their emotional, mental, just social safety is in jeopardy with some of the things that they're using on their devices. And we forget that, and we just pretend it's not a problem. And when we think about these app developers and creators, the goal is addiction here, if we're being honest. That is the point. They want us to use it more. They want our kids to use it more. And I mean, that's why you have Facebook coming out with like a kids version, because no one's getting Facebook anymore, so let's get the kids. Let's get them a little younger, so then maybe they'll come back and start using our product. It's not that bad kids are making bad choices online. It's more often that good kids are using apps with bad features that they just aren't ready to handle. I want to have you watch this video of Sean Parker. He was one of the founders, original president of Facebook. And he talks about the goals and why they did what they did with with social media.
Parker was the founding president of Facebook when the company started over a decade ago. He recently made some very jarring comments about social media exploiting the vulnerabilities in human psychology during a conversation with Axios. Here's what he had to say.
You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, and it's me, it's Mark, it's the Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
All right, let me just close my Facebook page right now. He's making me feel bad. Parker also said that social media, quote, probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it is doing to our children's brains.
When you think about your kids and what they're being exposed to, it is important to think about how their brains are being impacted. The brain is going through this massive rewiring process as kids become adults. And there are billions and billions of neural pathways that are being created. And the brains will solidify the pathways that are used most often. And it will kind of winnow and prune away the ones that are not being used. And how it decides that is what it's being fed. So if your kid is being fed very stimulating content, they always want to be watching shows or screens flashing, that is what the brain is going to crave. And other parts of the brain are going to just fade away. So it's really important. We're setting defaults, especially when our kids are younger. We set those defaults at a very critical age. And as they become teenagers, they're starting to make some of their own choices. But we still have to help them, because it's just like anything that there's an addictive nature to it. We need help, and they need help saying no. And they need boundaries, and they need limits. So we need to direct them in that. We can explain some of the neurology behind it. And that's what my husband and I did that with our older kids. We explained what we were learning, the science behind it. But we also had rules and guidelines, because they weren't able to say no by themselves all the time. We were there as the parent to help guide and direct them in that. We recommend the 7-day rule for any apps or games or things that your kids are wanting to play and use before they download it on their device. Hopefully you have the App Store locked down. We do not recommend that kids just have free reign of the App Store. We think it should be password protected and that parents have control of that. Hopefully that's what you're doing. And if your child wants an app, we recommend trying it out for 7 days first. Play around in it, see how it works. See the back doors, comment, post, like, because some of these apps have a built-in intelligence that they'll reveal more information the more you use it. Like the Discover section in Snapchat will give you more content the more you log in. So just encourage you in that. I had a mom of a 4-year-old that didn't check something on a beauty app that she thought was fine. It was a 4+ rating in the App Store. And then a few days later, there were naked people scrolling along the sides, like advertisements for her little girl. She was horrified. So we can't just trust what the rating is from the App Store, as even Chris's testimony indicated. We need to actually do the research ourselves. And when we talk about with the kids tricky people, predators are really getting smart and very savvy in how they're getting in contact with children. Roblox, if you're not familiar, this is like a Minecraft building sort of an app, and a lot of elementary school age kids like it. And there's an unmonitored chat feature. And when we talk about these are built for addiction, not safety, here's a prime example, because the chat feature is defaulted to be on. You have to go in and change it to be off. That's crazy to me, why they would do that. But again, it's not about safety. It's about addiction. It's about use. And we need to be having the conversations. You heard me talk to the teens tonight about tricky people. You need to be having those conversations with your kids, no matter the age. And my story with my husband and myself, we did help a girl. She was college age, and she got caught up in a situation with tricky people online. So I don't think your kids are ever too old to have a conversation. Obviously, age appropriate, but I don't think we should shy away from it, and I don't think it should be something that we forget to address. All apps with a chat feature will always have predatory activity. Roblox, the Fitbit app, all of them. Here's a digital law. Wherever the kids are is also where the predators are. So the digital playground now.
big question here. Does your son or daughter know how to walk away from a nice predator? We have to give our nice kids permission not to talk to nice people they don't know online. Just like I did tonight, how I explained the difference between responding to somebody who asks you a question or gives you a compliment. It's different in the real world than it is in the digital world. And it's okay to talk to your kids and make that distinction. Spell it out for them. Sometimes we assume a lot about our kids, that they're going to make all these decisions and make good choices because, well, we've taught them. But then they get confused in this kind of gray area and gray space. Here's another blog post I encourage you to check out. And the reason I'm pointing to our website so much is I only have an hour of your time, and we have thousands and thousands of research hours put into our site. So I'm going to keep pointing you there. It's totally free. It's worth the time, and so I'll address some of those. And there might be blog posts that I don't mention tonight that if you go to our site, you're going to see, wow, this really addresses some of the things that we're dealing with at home. And you can read further into that. Chris mentioned that Instagram is the leading social media platform for child grooming, and we did do a test account just to see how true that was. And as he mentioned, we liked put a few hashtags out there, liked a few photos, and put some photos of ourselves out there. And as he had mentioned, when you do a hashtag, it's like a cataloging system, okay? So it organizes the information. And a lot of hashtags can be really innocent. Beachwear and Kiss could be pretty innocent hashtags, but the predators are dropping information into these. So if teens are taking pictures of themselves with their friends, they're hashtagging them, and then they're going back to look at them later because they want to find them. Okay, I hashtagged it under this. I'm going to search that hashtag. Then they're stumbling across information like that predators are putting out there. So just for you to be aware of it. And then when we talked about just some of the other things that were going on with Instagram, we have some issues with 4 of the features in Instagram: the likes, the comments, the direct message, and then the other one's escaping me right now. But look at the likes here. This young man, he's a teenager, so we were pretending we were a teenage girl. So we liked the photo. It's pretty innocent, not a lot of issues with it, but the problem is we have a private account, so we think we're safe. No big deal. But a predator can go and they can actually hover over, I don't know if this works. So they can hover over the likes, and then they can see all of the people that liked that post, even if it's a private account. And then even if it's a private account, they can go here and they can direct message that person and send them a message. We were pretty excited back in December because we heard that Instagram was changing this feature, that it could be turned off, but it's just a toggle on, toggle off, so it's not a permanent fix. It's not a default. It's nothing like that. It sounded really good at the outset, but this is how we were having porn and a lot of other things sent to our account. This is how a lot of young people, when they were polled, were having direct messages, unsolicited direct messages that were inappropriate sent to them. It was through this. So just check the blog post. You can read further in this, and there are some pictures and things that are a little bit disturbing as you read through, but it just kind of opens your eyes to what's out there because our kids don't always use the apps the same way that we use them. So we just need to be real about that and just to be aware of what our kids might be coming across that we've never come across so we don't realize it's a problem. Dig into it a little bit, especially if your kids are on Instagram or asking to use it. And then we have a few opinions about Snapchat as well. Snapchat has some features that we have some issues with. The Snap Streak, Snap Map, Discover, and then the filters. So the Snap Streak, if you remember Jaden's video from the high school and middle school group, that's an addictive piece that Snapchat was brilliant in thinking of because I know kids that are stressed out about keeping their streak going. They wake up in the morning, that's the first thing that they do. Snap Map. Kids can show where they are, and it sounds really fun because you can go and surprise your friends. Hey, we're here, we found you. But then think of all the other people that could find them too. And then Discover, Chris mentioned, that's just crazy. They'll say it's age-gated, but the stuff that they put in there would surprise you. If you lowered your age, if you had Snapchat and you lowered the age, you'd be shocked at what 13-year-olds are being shown in the Discover News section. And then the filters, another brilliant marketing piece. Again, created for addiction, not safety. My little guys know what the face filters on Snapchat are because my sister-in-law, who doesn't have kids, she loves doing face filters with her nieces and nephews. So they're like, ooh, this is so fun. So as they get older, I'm sure it's going to be like, well, can I get Snapchat? Because I use the face filters. So it's already sucking them in at a really young age. Not every kid using Snapchat makes horrible choices. The filters are a blast, but let's be straight. Snapchat's history proves to us that they care nothing for the well-being of young people. It's an app founded on secrecy and sending nudes. Some kids just can't handle the risk. Parent, does your kid already have Snapchat? Great. Don't be passive. Know your kid. Know the risks. Parent accordingly. So Snapchat was originally created as a college sexting app. Some parents don't know that. I think it's important to know the history when things are created so you have a better understanding of the reasons and some of the goals behind it and some of the ways that it's operating. Here are some more blog posts that we have specifically on Snapchat that I'd encourage you to check out. One is about the face filters. One is about Cosmo, how as an organization we were able to, with the help of parents around the country, get them to take down a site they were going to release on Snapchat. And then this is a pretty big one that I think parents, if your kids use Snapchat, you need to be just really eyes wide open about this. You can get to Pornhub through Snapchat. Not a big deal, 5 clicks. And we explain in this blog post how that happens. So I just want you to be aware of it. It doesn't mean that if your kid has Snapchat, we say, oh, you better take it away and burn their phones. That's not what we're saying. But you need to be really honest with yourself and honest with your kids and think, is my kid going to struggle with this? Especially when pornography, again, has become an epidemic in our nation, where people are secretly addicted and are not getting help for this. Philippians 4:8 says, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on whatever is true, honorable, right, and pure, and lovely, and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And we talked about that with the high school kids, too, and the middle school kids. We want to encourage our kids to be putting things into their eyes, into their minds, that are going to help them grow. Digital trend 3 is parents are still the key in whether or not a kid uses their tech well. We set the example. Think just a question or a thought for you. Do you want them using their devices the same way you do? Are you setting a good example? The number one kid complaint we get is my parents use their phone more than I do. Seriously. And usually I get laughs like this, right? Because we think there's no way. I even do my screen time, and I can look at how much screen time I've used on my phone, and I can look at my kids, and it's not even close. But I think it's interesting if we hear kids and we're listening to what they're saying, even if it's not true, this is what they think. This is perceived. So they feel that way about it, even if it's not right. So then that means we have to do something different. Maybe we need to show, okay, I'm putting my phone down, it's dinner time. All the phones go on the counter. Or my daughter's boyfriend, he bought us a no phone zone little box that we could put, so everyone had to put their phones in there because he knew that's our rule at dinner, no devices. I mean, I might see Ryan smiling at his crotch, and I'm like, you, phone, counter, because I know there's no reason for that, right? So just think about spaces where you can have a no phone zone, a digital free space. Think about that and consider it and talk about it. And if you're using your device for work, which I do that from home. I work part-time from home. So my little boys see me on my phone sometime or my computer. I will tell them if I'm in the midst of a texting conversation or an email, Mommy's texting, maybe it's Mr. McKenna, maybe it's Mrs. Thompson. She's one of our social media people. To let them know, Mommy's responding to this for work, and then I'll be right back to play with you or to interact with you. So they understand that I'm not just playing a game, I'm not just watching a show. Some parents are a greater risk to their child's safety and privacy than any predator. Sometimes we're the problem because we can't stop posting. And I think that's really important just to consider what we're putting out there, our behaviors on social media. Sometimes we're really proud of what our kids are doing, and we want to share it with the world. But we forget all the people that are seeing that and the privacy that we're giving up, whether it's we're sharing what our kid's birthday is or where we go for fun, whether it's a park or a play place, any of those things. We forget that we're revealing it to a lot of people. So this is just another blog post I encourage you to check out and kind of think through what you're doing, what kinds of choices you're making digitally that could be putting your children at risk or could be setting just a bad example. And then other questions that parents ask. What's the right parental control solution? So we encourage to guard doorways, and we have 4 ways to do this. First of all, we want to be relationship focused. So remember that relational circle, and we really want to have that connection with our kids, because rules without a relationship equals rebellion, right? You've heard that before. So we need a relationship. We need a good foundation with our children. And then we want to guard their location. So where the device is used will often determine how it's being used. So as an organization, we say no bathrooms, bedrooms, buses, sleepovers, grandparents' houses. Or rather, those are the most dangerous places to use them. So I'll repeat that again. Bathrooms, bedrooms, buses, sleepovers, and grandparents' houses. Unless their grandparents are on board and confident in instituting some of the things that you've said that needs to happen with the digital devices. And then just think about being wireless filtered. So consider your router and what you need to do there. And then devices protected. We definitely think there needs to be some sort of filtering and monitoring on the devices themselves. And we have some ideas for that. Here are some we would recommend. And definitely, depending on which platform you're using, whether it's Family Link or iOS, the screen time, we would suggest utilizing those as just part of the phone. But then some of these other things could be above and beyond that. And this is a company that we're really excited about. It's an iPhone-looking smartphone with no internet and no apps. And some might think, well, that's silly. Why would you need that? My older 2 kids did not have a smartphone until they were 16. They had a track phone. And Cheyenne didn't really care, but Ryan was so embarrassed. I would get calls from random numbers. I'm like, hello? He's like, hey, Mom, it's me, it's Ryan. I'm like, why are you calling me on this number? Well, I was too embarrassed to take my phone in my bag. Like, okay. So I felt badly, right? But we were also trying to teach our kids personal responsibility, and we were also trying to teach them, you are worth more than your phone. You're not the car you drive, the clothes you wear, or the phone you carry in your pocket. And so trying to teach them that practically. But I'm excited for my little guys as they get bigger. I hope this company's still around, because this does look a little bit cooler. It's a little less embarrassing and a little less noticeable. But the risk is eliminated because there's no internet and there are no apps. It still can talk and text, and there's still some other things. I think there might be an alarm and a calendar and some of those kinds of things. But it's a really cool option, especially if you have kids where you're thinking, we want to get them a phone, but we don't know. Check it out. And then just another question, what's the right amount of screen time or gaming for my kid? We do not have a hard, fast answer for that. Nobody does. But here are a few things that we all agree on. We, and then the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization, less is better. Kids under 2 shouldn't be using screens. It's not good. Remember the neural pathways that are being created? They shouldn't be exposed to that. And then how we as adults use the tech is going to really dictate how our kids are using it. So check out the blog post. You can read a little bit more about maybe some of those things to be aware of, some of the limits, and some of the concerns. Just a question, what happens when you take it away? If removing the screen causes your child to turn into an altered version of himself or herself, then you might just need to adjust the amount of screen time he or she is getting. And so just for JD, if you get mad when I take it away, then whatever you're playing, or in his case, watching, is gone for at least a day. So we're watching what the response is with removal, because that also can show addiction. If there's a really aggressive response and anger and frustration, there's something going on there where they're having a hard time breaking away. And JD knows that. JD, we just switched this because I came to a parent presentation and we have a talk time at the end, and I got some ideas from other parents, which I love. So we moved JD to just have screen time on the weekends. He doesn't have it during the week, and it's very minimal. But he knows that even if he freaks out or does something he's not supposed to in response to the screen, then he might be done for that day and the rest of the weekend too. So it helps to keep him in check. And I just want to be the first to say, I believe our children should be able to, they're allowed to be angry, they're allowed to feel emotion. I think that's important to be real about that. But it's how they do that, how they go about showing that. So just as a summary, we want to talk through the relational steps. Remember from the beginning, these are really important. These are, I would say, the most important. You can do all the other technical things correctly, But if you don't get the relational piece right, none of the rest of it's probably going to matter. First, assess your router. If your router is 5 years old or older, you should probably look at getting a new one, and it'll take care of probably the top 3. If you need some ideas, go to our resource page. We have some ones that we think are pretty good. But get your YouTube under control. Block the porn. Use Clean DNS or the clean browsing that you saw, the little fox, and that blog post, how to block porn on any device for free. Check that out. It's awesome. And then Family Link or Screen Time, depending on the platform you're using. And then also as an extra, Bark or Covenant Eyes are really great, especially for teenagers. Bark is phenomenal. They're wonderful at allowing you to not have to constantly be logging into your kid's device and creating those spaces for conversation. Hey, I saw this, just wondered what was going on. And your kids don't feel their personal space invaded as much. I'm going to give you another chance if you didn't connect with us earlier. Some people don't like to sign up because they're thinking, I already get too many mailings, I don't want one more. If you didn't sign up, please sign up with us. Text the word PROTECT to 66866. And then also follow us on the other social media platforms. And we put stuff out there regularly. Lastly, I want to leave you with the fixappratings.com campaign that we're a part of. That is part of what Chris's testimony was about in July. And he has since traveled to DC multiple times over the course of the last 7-8 months and met with legislators and politicians. And we've put stuff out on our pages just to let people know how to get involved and what to do. Because we would really like to see this be a movement where parents around the country get behind this and say, we need to fix these things to protect our kids. They deserve that, and this is really important.